Okay, fine. I'll give you an example. True life story. A little girl from a Christian home was looking for love. Years later, she found it in a strip club. And here's how it happened. Her name is Annie. And when she was younger, her dad would always come home really exhausted from work and the stress of Minnesota. And oftentimes he would talk out of stress and anger. And as a child, at the receiving end, over time, she had concluded that she was unlovable. But when she got to high school as a teenager, that affection and attention that she didn't get from her father, she started getting it from those boys in school. Yeah. A little beautiful here, and I like your smile there. And she started feeling like she was in the right environment. She eventually met a boy who promised her a future. They will have children, build a life, become husband and wife. Of course, we know how this story ends, right? But Annie believed him completely. Because when you are love starved, you'll be shocked at what you can give into when you receive a semblance of love. So when she later discovered that he had dated several of her close friends, she was heartbroken. Now, at 18 years old, a day after she graduated from that high school, she packed all her things, waved goodbye to her parents, and she went to settle in Minneapolis with the plan to attend college, build a successful life. But instead, she found herself working 3 jobs just to survive. Inside her, though, that vacuum for love and attention still existed. So she later thought, maybe I will find love again. And therefore, she and her friend then began to spend evenings at local nightclubs. She saw wealthy older men living life at large and spending money, the kind of money that she had not seen or made in her 3 jobs combined. So a few tips here and there, and she was attracted to it. Not long after, her friend moved to Hawaii with one of those men that they met in the club. Annie later joined her, of course, and that was how she started selling her body for money. It felt to her like putting a ring in a finger that she couldn't take off. And she knew deep within her conscience, she knew. But when you're faced with certain situations in your life, the power of your conscience becomes so weak that whatever you have to do at that moment overcomes your conscience. So, of course, at some point, she started getting clients who would pay her as much as $10,000 for an entire night. Now, that was a lot of money for her. But the more money she was making, the emptier she felt. So she eventually met a man, Julian, at the club. And from the way the man showered love on her, she knew that she had finally found love. So she moved in with him to Las Vegas. She would go out to work and she would return with large amounts of money. But instead of celebrating her, Julian would ask her to give him all that she had earned. Of course, she would refuse. But when she refused, he attacked her, he dragged her by the hair, beat her, choked her, broke her nose and her ribs, and told her she would now be working with him. Now, that was when she realized that she had become trapped by a pimp. So for years, she endured repeated violence, sexual assault, threats, and intimidation. But she remained, partly because she feared for her life, and partly because she believed that she still loved him. Eventually, she managed to escape, but she left almost everything behind: her money, her cars, everything. She rebuilt her life and returned to the club, but it only got worse because at some point, Annie was diagnosed with cancer. The treatment made her lose her hair, and she began wearing wigs to cover up while continuing to meet her clients. The pain from the cancer led to her taking painkillers, and eventually she landed in cocaine and became addicted. One night in 2003, after recounting her life, her years of addiction, the illness, the grief, and the loss of 3 loved ones within the space of 3 months, her sister, her aunt, and one other person. After thinking about all of that, she decided to end the pain once and for all. So she consumed an unusually large amount of cocaine and she went blank. She later recalled feeling as though darkness completely surrounded her at that moment and she believed that she was about to die. As she laid there, she imagined her own funeral. In her mind, she could see family members standing around a coffin. She imagined that people were remembering her simply as a prostitute. She was scared. So she prayed, Jesus, please, if you are real, save my life. Shortly after, an ambulance arrived and she was taken to the hospital. And after she regained consciousness, one of the doctors told her this. He said, considering the amount of drugs that was found in your system, you should have been dead by now. You should not have been able to survive that. At that point, Annie believed that God actually heard her prayer and gave her a second chance. So after leaving the hospital, she began watching Christian televisions late at night. She would buy a Bible and she would start reading it every day. Gradually, she began praying again. She wanted to return to church. But here's the thing. She feared that people would reject her because of her past. And I think that is very, very common in our churches, especially today. So when she finally walked into a church, instead of condemnation or rejection, she was welcomed. Those experiences were the beginning of deep emotional and spiritual healing for her. I really wish most of our churches today are like this. One time in 2005, while she was at home, she heard God clearly tell her, go back to that Las Vegas trip and let others who are still living that life, let them know that I still love them. So she printed simple business cards with her name, her phone number, and she went back to the street. She would introduce herself, she would share a little about her story, and then she would hand them her card. And she would tell them, if you ever want out, please call me. Weeks later, months later, even years later, some of the ladies began to call her. They wanted a different life too. That same year, she started a ministry and she called it Hookers for Jesus. So as more women reached out to her for help, she discovered that many of them, even more people, want to leave that sex industry. But when they leave, they don't have any safe place to go. So they'll rather remain in the industry, pending when there is a way. So what she did was that she allowed some of them to start staying in her own home, and she placed others in hotel rooms while she started looking for longer term solutions. She later got married, and today Annie speaks around the world to churches, law enforcement agencies, hospitals, schools, and community organizations about prostitution, trafficking, recovery, and hope. Now, that's a lot to consume at once, but this is where I'm driving at. Number one, childhood abuse, neglect, emotional deprivation, and family dysfunction substantially increases vulnerability. They make children and teenagers more likely to seek love, belonging, validation, or even escape in places where they may be manipulated, exploited, or introduced to drugs and commercial sex. There is no hookup lady or sex worker out there that grew up searching for prostitution. Like Annie, it began with searching for love, affection, validation, or significance before prostitution became part of the story. So whatever you do, please and please marry well and marry in God, so that you have the right partner that partners with you on intentional parenting that is heavily invested in the emotional health of your children. And if you're married, let it be that you have tried your best and done all that you can, but don't owe your children a healthy life, emotionally and physically. Number two, shame keeps people trapped longer than chains do. Even after surviving cancer and addiction, Annie hesitated to enter a church, right? Because she believed people would reject her for her past. She recently shared that she wished a church had reached out to her earlier when she was deep in sin.
I needed a pastor to say, this isn't right.
Right.
This is immoral.
Today's world, we are better at judging people and throwing heavy stones of comments on the streets of social media than actually trying to reach out to help them out. If you have never prayed for them or offered to help them, you don't have the right to think or say anything other than positive things towards them, whether in private or in public. Because God doesn't love you more than He loves them. Number three, that style of preaching that focuses on give your life to Christ or burn in hell is not the gospel. Jesus never preached that. So where did you get your gospel from? Jesus saved an adulterer from being mobbed, sat and chatted with a celebrity prostitute by the well, and He allowed a harlot to touch His feet, wash His feet with her hair, kiss His feet repeatedly, and then He made sure she was quoted 2,000 years after as one of the women of faith in the Bible. What do we do today the moment a lady introduces herself as a hookup babe? See, it is the goodness of God that leads to repentance, not fear and condemnation. Number four, healing doesn't erase the past, but it gives a purpose. Annie didn't pretend those 16 years never happened. Instead, she used her experience to understand and help women that are still trapped in the same life. So no matter how terrible you think you are, you have a purpose. That you have not discovered it does not mean it doesn't exist. And that you have not started living your purpose doesn't mean it's too late, no matter how old or late you think you are. This video is getting too long. Please subscribe and turn on your notifications so you can see more of this. Yeah? Thank you for watching to this point. Cheers.